Welcome to Marriage Now What. Today I've got Liz with me. So it's interesting because you said, if I love you, it's easy to submit to the love that I'm giving you rather than the ask or the demand that I'm asking you to do. Enlighten on that.
Well, everybody knows the word submit is terrifying, especially if you're a woman. It's a terrifying, because we immediately think of submitting to control, manipulation, opinions, a person, a human being, mistakes, but in the Bible, really, it's talking about submitting to love. When we submit, when we, if you will, give your heart, like give your heart, give yourself, give all of yourself. It's not difficult for me to give all of myself to you because I'm so confident in your love for me. I'm so confident that you would do anything for me. I've seen you. I've seen it in action. I have 16 years of a life with you that shows me that you're in it for the long haul, commitment, and all that comes with it. So when I think about submitting to you, what I'm submitting to you is your love. And I was just telling you earlier, what I say to you all the time is, you love me. We'll just be messing around and joking. I'll say, you love me. You love me. And I'm sort of looking for a response. You're
fishing. You're fishing. I know.
You're saying, yes, I love you, or whatever, because I'm telling myself that you're here, you're with him, and he loves you, and it's good, and it's safe, and this is a good place, and I don't have to get all wrapped up in the word submit. You really don't. I mean, whatever that word means to you, whatever you've learned in your childhood or in your marriage now, I mean, I don't even have to think about that. Like, it's, set that aside, because when you do submit to love, it's like, hey, let's go.
It's a safe place, a good place. Like, you're not having to give up your life to do it. You're entering into that,
right? Because if you love me, you wouldn't ask me to give up my life. Really,
but really, like, submit is give up your life, your will, your things, your thoughts, your feelings. Give all of that up and just do as I say. And you're almost robotic at that point. So, I mean, yeah, the concept doesn't work for one of the individuals in the relationship, if that's what we're saying.
Right. And, if you had like an example, let's give an example. Let's say I want to, let's say I come to you and I say, hey, this is something I want to do. What's an example of something I would want to do?
Well, you want to go to the beach with your friends.
Okay. Let's say I say to you, actually, let's say it like this. Once a year, I want to take a trip with my friends. It's important to me. Friendship is very valuable to me. I'm a huge extrovert. This is part of my life. Now, in your mind, here's what could possibly be going through. Money. How much is that going to cost?
Booty shake. Getting drunk at the bar.
Oh, really? That would go through your mind? Okay.
I've heard stories about you with your friends.
Oh, my God. Okay, so that's something that goes through your mind. What else? Time. Who's going to watch the kids? What are you going to do as far as work and having the kids at the same time? And there's a whole list of things that it could go through your mind where you're like, really? Every year? Like, this is
how about every leap year?
Yeah, this is an inconvenience. And if you could say, do you really need that? Like, couldn't you do something in town? Or like, you might try to change it into something that you think is better, just stay in town or go out to eat or something like that, but I mean, you love me. You love me. You love that that's part of me, that's who I am, that I do like time with my friends, away from the kids, away from their family.
And so I submit to that idea and make my actions work to meet your actions.
Right.
To be able to go
regardless of how you feel.
Right.
You might not be real excited or happy, or you might not even want me to do that. But in your mind, you're like, but this is a part of who she is. And, I want her to I don't want her to have to, shove that down. Now, people could be unrealistic, okay? So I could also be like going out every weekend to the clubs, and you, at that point, you might step in and be like, I mean, we have kids and you're coming home drunk all the time and then you're hungover,
Well, and that is a flip side to things. So, I mean, there is a submitting to somebody to do good things with their life and enjoy it and stuff like that. But then there's also kind of a demand that we put on each other of protecting ourselves from you doing bad things. Submit to me, don't cheat on me, right? I feel like the church has kind of made that about, don't have sex before marriage because like, oh, don't cheat on me, or like they even say don't get a divorce because God hates divorce, don't get divorced. And so they use that as kind of like, well, if you go to the club and you're hanging out, I might get a divorce to you. And you don't want that because, God doesn't like divorce. And if I was to be 100% totally transparent, and I hope other people would be too, is we were talking about kind of divorce last week, and I think I had this idea that I'm a Christian, you're a Christian, we're in a Christian marriage, divorce is off the table, and so I can tell you to submit or get you to do this or push you to do that, and it doesn't really matter because you're forced into this relationship because of the divorce. So it's like almost our mindset says divorce is bad, and so now I am demanding you submit to me, and I submit to you because I can't break that divorce bond. It's kind of weird in that sense.
Well, I think maybe what you're saying is you always thought of divorce as law, rule. Like in your mind, it's like, don't break that rule no matter what. These are the rules. Whereas the other, so if you take this, I like to think about it in terms of food. If I'm deciding what I'm going to eat for the week, and I want to be healthy, I want to have a healthy lifestyle, I can either think of all the things I can never have because those are the rules. These are the rules. You can't have this, you can't have this, you can't have this. Or I can think of all of the amazing, beautiful, wonderful foods and colors of foods that I can have. I mean, it's like you're deciding when you enter a marriage, like you can either continually focus on don't break this rule, don't break this rule, don't break this rule. It's like you're focusing on the divorce or the negative all the time instead of like, man, look at this person I get to spend the rest of my life with, that we get to enjoy life together, that I'm never alone. I have a best friend all the time. And that's worth fighting for. That's worth creating something with, So it's like we were almost taught to focus on the negative, even to not do it. We were taught to really focus on that, really focus on making sure you don't break this rule. And instead of teaching about all of the amazing things about it.
Right. Well, and you came to the point where I guess, and I'm going to assume, because we talked about, our relationship where it came to the breaking point of getting a divorce, and you came to the threshold of it, probably even entered in, and what was that, though, that made you think of the difference between my good thoughts of my marriage, where I'm at personally as a person, and the possibilities of getting divorced and kind of breaking that overall law, because basically submit was in all of that, and it's kind of like, to a degree, was your life was going to be better with divorce to me than it was currently as we were. And that's kind of the thing I think of is like, did I treat you not as good as you should have been treated because I felt like, well, we can never get a divorce, so she's here forever?
Yeah. So this is a lot to unpack. And all I have is my own personal story. That's right. All we have. Okay. So we cannot speak for each other. Every marriage, every relationship is very unique, very individual. I had a great example of a good and wonderful marriage. My parents were so in love, and their marriage was not perfect, but man, they were so in love. They got together when they were 15 years old. I mean, that each other is all they ever knew. It is an amazing love story all the way to the end when my mom died. And it was a marriage of sacrifice, and my dad sacrificed for her, and my mom was in a wheelchair, and he had to, help her to the bathroom and help her eat. And I mean, and I think that intimacy of just being together like that.
Doing so much together.
Yes. I mean, their lives were completely intertwined in every way. And which also made it hard a lot of times because you get sick of people. but man, they were so in love, and they would have never got a divorce. That was just not, that was not going to ever happen. So for me, when you wanted to get married, I didn't and I was very young, and you're like 8 years older than me, but so it made sense that you were ready to get married, and it made sense that I wasn't. But I'm the type of person that I was really counting the costs. I was like, man, once you get in a marriage, you're trapped. Like this is my mind, people that were married did not make it look good at all. Like it was not really tempting to me. Now I really did want kids at a very young age. I remember thinking, I wish I could just have babies. Like I just want the baby, but I don't want a committed lifelong relationship with someone that may or may not want the best for my life, So I really did not want to get married, honestly. And you know that because I said no several times to your asking. And I didn't like the idea of just, and I think that divorce is part of it, because in my mind it's like you got to be so ready that you're just never going to want to get a divorce. That's unrealistic, which I didn't know at that time, I mean, basically I got married because, of like what we were talking about in the last podcast, because of like sex, and we're not supposed to be doing physical things if we're not married. And it's like, so now you just go ahead and jump in, be forced into it, which I don't think is terrible. I mean, we grew together, we were in love. It's fine. But when it did get difficult. Oh, like over the years, you struggle and you struggle and you struggle, and you have the same fights over and over again, and you yell the same things at each other, and you're having the same thoughts about the other person. And after a while, I just really stopped thinking good things about you at all. I mean, over time it was like I knew divorce was wrong, and I knew it wasn't, we were supposed to not think of it as an option. That's what people say. Well, don't even have it as an option. Don't even think about it. Just work through it, fight through it. But I got to the point where I had no fight left. I mean, I had nothing. I had no desire to fight for you, for our marriage together at all. And, I was like, I would cry because I'm like, I really don't want to be with this person anymore, but I don't know how to get out of this, because now we have kids together, and I also don't have any money, and I don't have a job, and if we got a divorce, these are things I was thinking I'd have to. So
you were staying with me because I had a job or had a house, and
pretty much, like I didn't. I would have to leave my kids and go to a job, right. And they were little. Right. I would have to leave them with someone else. It would be costly, Of course, I wasn't really smart enough to understand at that time that I would have gotten a good bit of your money and been able to.
There you go, weekly child support, right? Alimony, all right.
But the part about divorce, I had definitely given up. And it was in my heart. What was
the thing where, because like you said, like you were like, oh, you should focus on the good things about marriage, and then you started focusing less and less on them, and then you were to where you were like, I accept divorce,
Oh yeah.
As a person, as an individual, as hey, this isn't healthy for me or stuff like that. Because like let's say if there's a lot of women right now or men who are in the situations who are saying, man, am I just staying with this person for money? Am I just staying with this person for this? Am I just staying with this person for that? Or, and they're not considering divorce, and they're just hurting so much, like you said, crying at night inside. I mean, walk through that a little.
And this is where it's hard because everyone is so unique.
Right.
You don't know someone's story. So, for example, somebody might be in that situation, and it probably needs to be over. That marriage maybe needs to be over, because if you have a person that's just unwilling, unwilling to be different at all, it's like almost like they have blinders on, and this is the only way they're ever going to see things. You're wrong and they're right, and you both of you have just come to the end of what you're willing to. It may not even be a big fight. Like I felt that way, like it was over even when we weren't in a big fight, because to me it felt like you were not going to change. I wasn't going to feel different. I wasn't going to change.
You couldn't change your feelings that I was producing towards you.
Right. I mean, that feeling not good enough for someone, or like I always said, I'm not what you really want, which you continually say all the time. But every fight, everything we're saying is that I'm not enough for you, or is that's what I'm interpreting. Every fight and everything you're saying is that I'm just not really who you want, which I think at the end there, not at the end, but you know what I'm saying? I think that's what I said to you is, maybe it's time for this to be over, because for me, it's not working out, because I can't be what you want, and I'm tired of trying. I'm tired of bending over backwards, killing myself to be what you expect a wife to be, what you expect me to be, because it's just not me.
Right, and that's where the submit comes in. Like we talked about the submit before, of doing things to help people, but then if you're living in a lifestyle of submit that hurts you, it's like if I were to say, oh, well, what you were getting into, you knew me before you got married, or
Yeah.
and well, you want to be a stay-at-home mom, so this is what a stay-at-home mom does, and I create this world, and you're like, yeah, but I see other stay-at-home moms do this, and so you got to the point, and that's what I'm trying to say, like the recognizing the point in the relationship that you're at, is divorce the better option?
I mean, I think it's important for, as you go in a marriage, recognize that like burnout, or that if you have like resentment and bitterness growing in any area, like, for me and you specifically in the area of, not. You're
thinking of a nice way to say it.
So not being good enough for you, in my mind, like I could never have the house clean enough. I could never be the best mom that I felt like you expected me to be. I could never be your mom who I felt like you expected me to be. Those were your expectations. So through time, through the years, I think probably you've got to recognize where inside of you that bitterness, resentment is growing, that burnout, because you've got to start addressing stuff as you go, because everyone will get to a point where they're just done. They're not willing to try. They've had many conversations with their spouse, and they feel like it's not working. You know what I'm saying? That like burnout point that's when people are like, I think maybe it's just time that we're done.
Well, and here's the thing, and this is what I was trying to start kind of off, that I wasn't being able to put in words, but now that you said it, once you became to the point of burnout, it made me recognize that divorce was on the table.
Right.
Kind of sometimes we get so self-centered of, good people don't get divorced, or, should never get a divorce from me, or, and it's kind of like you have this thing hanging over you in the relationship. And I don't know that I tried as hard as I could or should have until divorce was really, really put on the table, because I think that was the eye opener for me. It was like the word divorce, or the action of divorce, is no longer my protection. It's now a realistic thing because of the way I've done. And so I had to really, once you put it out there, I had to really say, whoa.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't do it on
surprised.
purpose, right? I didn't do. I mean, I wasn't trying to use divorce as protecting of me. I just didn't realize
right
what I was doing.
Right, and I remember when I said to you that I mean I didn't want to continue a relationship. I mean, I was like, we can live together and have kids together, whatever, but like I don't want you anymore. And I remember your surprise. You were like, "What? You don't think we have a good marriage?" And I was like, "Not from my seat." I do not think we have a good marriage. And I remember how surprised you were. You were like, "I can't even believe you're saying this, that you might want it to be over," And that was me for years.
Right.
Like years, I was like, "Oh God, I got married too young. I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have picked him. Like I should have waited till I was older to pick someone different." These are the types of things that go through your mind. And for some people, I don't think there's a right or wrong necessarily, I mean, maybe if you would have continued to be like, "No, you do need to do this, this, and this," if you would have continued to make me feel like I was alone, secluded, and you were kind of over me, at some point we probably would have got a divorce. I mean, people are only going to, be controlled or whatever for so long. So someone's out there and they're like, "I'm really at the end. I don't know what to do." But like you said, but divorce is wrong and bad and evil and all this stuff.
I'm a failure or stuff like that. I mean,
divorce is, from close people with me who talk about it, it's incredibly painful,
yes.
Incredibly deep wounds that take time to heal. It's very difficult for everyone involved, the kids, the two people, even the parents and things like that.
Or if they get re-engaged or married, then those people, I mean,
it's not ideal.
Right.
It's not what people go into marriage wanting. But I do recognize that you cannot always just live your life the rest of time with someone that, like we're saying, you're in this position where you're not even yourself anymore. Like your fire's gone out, you're depressed, you're sad, you're angry, you're bitter, you're resentful. I mean, that's no way to live. That's not being a good parent to your kids either. Just telling yourself, no, you just got to stay in it. You can't get divorced even though, I mean, you're miserable. I mean, you're like cutting your wrists in the bathroom because you want to die rather than be with that person. I mean, there's times that you have to it's just not working out. And I think a lot of those times, the other person is like you, like, "No, I don't want a divorce. Why are you doing this? I don't want a divorce." And you're like, "Well, I don't necessarily want one either, but I also recognize that this is not working out. This is not, we're two very different people, and, you're unwilling to do those things and to change." And, I change. So who I was when I was 21 is different than who I was when I was, 29. That was a long time of, I was figuring myself out, growing, maturing, and so we become different people. And then you're still trying to mesh with that other person or, come together as a team with that other person. And it just doesn't always work. And I think the whole world needs to have a lot more grace for that. I mean, they need to have grace for people that are going through first of all, it's awful enough on its own.
Right.
Like, don't make it worse by judging somebody. You don't know their story. I heard of a couple that I didn't know personally, but they got divorced. They were from a church, and other people in the church were like, "Dear God, why did they get a divorce?" They were amazing. They're two amazing people. Awesome, loving, kind, funny. They had kids together. And all of a sudden, this is what you hear, all of a sudden, they got a divorce. And of course, everyone blamed the girl because she was the one that was like, we're getting a divorce and I'm not like talking about, I'm not going to counseling about it anymore. Like, it's over. And the guy was like, no, please. I don't want a divorce. Like, we have kids together, and everybody really was harsh on her. And I just kept saying, you don't know the whole story. They didn't all of a sudden get a divorce. You don't know what the years of marriage to him were like, or to her. You just absolutely do not know anything about their heart, their situation, what they went through. But for her to get to the point where she was absolutely finished, I mean, that didn't happen overnight, And I'm sure that he doesn't want to get a divorce because he was probably getting a awesome end of the deal. You know, he was probably getting home cooked meals, his kids taken care of without paying for childcare. You know,
he's probably playing Xbox all day.
Yeah, I mean, a hot little piece of ass wife, like, you know, like, and I don't know. See, that is me maybe judging him. Right. I don't know the story, but I know that everyone judged her because she quit, because she got a divorce, and they were like, that is a sin and that is not of God, and you should have tried to work it out. You don't know how many conversations she tried to work it out and tried to say, I'm drowning in this relationship. I can't handle anymore, and I'm gonna need something to change. I'm gonna need you to meet me halfway. I'm gonna need for something to be different, because I can't go on living like it's almost like you feel like you're living a lie when you have to not really get to be yourself anymore. You know, I mean, I remember when you would say, which granted we had a money problem, we had a finances problem, which is a big deal. So you'd be like, this is how much money you get. This is it. Don't go over it. Don't, you know, and then you'd start judging where I was spending it, you know, and that's control to a very large degree, because we didn't agree on that together. That was just you telling me what to do, you know, which maybe at the beginning made sense because I was a 21-year-old idiot, you know, but I mean, I was never, in my opinion, I was never a big, huge spender. You know, I'm probably a bigger spender now than I was then, but you know, it's just, everyone gets to a point where you're like, if you are not going to hear me, if you're not listening and hearing my heart and what I'm trying to say, you're not getting me, you know, and friends and family will see that person and see like just kind of their light dim and dim and dim and dim, you know, and how much before that person just breaks, you know. So should someone have to stay in a marriage like that? Absolutely not. They should not. You should not have to live the rest of your life miserable. If it's allowed to get a divorce to someone because they're an alcoholic or a drug addict, everybody's fine with that. Oh, well, they were a screw up. Of course it's fine for you to divorce them, right? But no other reasons? Or if they cheated, it's like everybody has their reasons. This is the law, isn't it? Is this so typical of the law? Everyone has got their reasons why in their mind it's fine for divorce.
Well, I even thought that is like, oh, if she cheats on me, it's a divorce, no problem, automatic X out.
Oh yeah, then it's fine. Right. Under those circumstances, then it's fine.
But it's so weird because it's like, but who does that protect? It protects me, right? You cheat on me, you're getting a divorce. But then where's the protection for you? I can treat you like crap, talk to you like you're not enough, or you feel stupid, or you feel like enslaved, or, you know, I can do all of that, and that is not terms for divorce.
Right.
And that's odd that we could just devalue and demean somebody so much.
And they're in prison. That's a good word for it. When we get taught about divorce and marriage, it's like prison. You cannot leave under any circumstances except for this or whatever, you know, which is not God at all. That's not God. That's not Jesus. That's not the Holy Spirit. That is a whole bunch of rules. But when you think about marriage as, you know, it's really like a garden. You got things to take care of in that garden. You should see that garden flourishing. If flowers,
everything's dead.
Yeah, is dead and wilting, and then you're telling that person you have to stay in this prison for the rest of your life, even though you're a wilted, dying flower. Nobody should have to live like that. I mean, somebody could be an alcoholic and it, like I was saying, it'd be fine. But what if that other person is not an alcoholic? You know, what if they're secretly controlling? What if they're just really very, very selfish? You know, and do not really want to, I say, like mesh, like become a team with another person. You cannot be a team by yourself. So if someone is unwilling to, you know, come together with you, how long should someone suffer in that prison before they get to go live the rest of their life? I mean, I think it's so unfair that we tell people, don't give up. And everybody does that. Somebody's talking about, I've changed the way.
I'll pray for you.
Yeah. I'm going to pray for your marriage to make it. Don't give up. I don't say that to people anymore. Right. You know what I say to people? Then when they're struggling in their marriage, and it's just, you know, me and them personally, I say, I support you either way. I got your back. No matter what you decide, whatever you want, however you want this to play out, I'm with you. Do you want to work? Do you want to put work in it? You guys are going to go to counseling. You guys are going to just give it all you got. I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm for you. I'm for your marriage. Are you really getting to the end to where you want to, this is not working for you and you don't want to spend the rest of your dang life miserable in a prison? I'm with you. I'm for you, no matter what. It doesn't change what I think of you. I'm not judging you in any way. I understand that you don't deserve to come home every day miserable and feeling awful and in depression. I mean, don't ever assume that someone didn't try really hard.
Right.
I mean, they could have gave it all they got. And yes, it's going to be terrible, painful, and so you love somebody and you're like, well, I don't want you to go through divorce because it's terribly painful. But maybe they need to get through that. Maybe they need to go ahead and start the process and get through it, and move on. Move on with their life.
Yeah, I remember when the recession came, the guy goes, hurry up and go bankrupt. And I was like, what? Like being bankrupt was a bad word, It's like
Yeah.
divorce. Hurry up and get divorced. Hurry up. And I was like, what? And he goes, well, because you'll get on with your life quicker if you go bankrupt. And I did not go bankrupt. And that's why we were in such severe, dire straits of money. And it was very, very hard, not only on business, but on marriage and the kids and everything. But, that would have been sound advice if I would have taken advantage of that, But let's talk a little bit of the shift, because honestly, I'm sure a lot of people are listening and they're feeling, yeah, that's me. Now, what was the shift from where you felt enslaved into the marriage and no way out? You were going to get a divorce. And then, what was the shift with us? Did it come quickly? What was it that was the change? Did you see real change in me? Because really, I think, the next step is if they are going to stay, they need some guidelines and some words of advice of, hey, if this happens, it might be better.
So there's a lot of things that I think had to do with it. I think the shift happened when, first of all, it got real bad. I mean, we were fighting like physically, like it was very, very bad. And I think that something broke. And at that point when I was like, I'm done, it's over. I think that both of us were like, oh my God, like this for real could be the end. It's like that little bit of fear. This really could be the end if I don't do something now. Like if we don't really, really put effort in. And I think both of us, it takes two, did not want that to happen. We both were like, I want to stay married to this person. I want to work. I'm willing to work. I'm willing to do what it takes. I'm willing to love them sacrificially. We really did. But I would say this too. We went to counseling straight away. And honestly, we should have gone a long time before we did, because we waited till I was going to get a divorce, like I was ready to be done. And that is way too long to wait. Whatever stigma is around marriage counseling needs to leave. Go to marriage counseling. Everybody, go to marriage counseling. It's amazing. It's good for you. Go when you're happy. Don't wait till you're in a fight. Work through things. Talk about things. This is good. This is like eating good food for your body. That's what counseling is. It's working on, I have my friends Misha and Ray. They go to these marriage conferences every year. They make it a priority. They learn. They study. They make notes. And that counseling was amazing for us. Amazing. Pastor Dale Young did our counseling. It was very, very, very good. He was so gracious. He was so kind. He was so loving. He did not make either one of us feel like a villain. He helped us understand that we were totally normal. He didn't make us feel bad or like God. He was like, God loves you. He didn't make us feel sinful or dirty or any of those things that religion does a lot. He was amazing. And we really put the work. And at day one, he's like, are you going to put the work? Like, are you going to do this? Are we doing this? Or are we doing this? And both me and you I think we were kind of like scared, because we were scared that it was over. And we were like, yeah. We had to get, your mom helped with this. We had to make appointments, get help with the kids. It was an effort, and honestly, years before that, I was asking you to go to counseling. I said it for years. I was like, please, can we go to counseling? And your response was, Do you want to say it or do you want me to?
You can.
You said, you go because I am not the one that's having a problem.
Right.
So
I figured if you thought that there was something wrong with the marriage, then you needed revelation.
And you said go get with some woman, like go get with Jill and you'd say to learn how to be a good wife.
Right. You become a better wife and things will work out better.
Right. And and that
and I think because we always look to blame or where we're right, so it's kind of like, well, if you're having a problem submitting, if you're having a problem doing the womanly chores or what my thought of the womanly chores are to be, then you need more experience, more knowledge, more understanding, more books, more courses, more training, and then you'll be able to step up in maturity as a wife, be the better person, and then I'll feel better about the whole thing. And I think that's kind of we went to a lot of marriage seminars also, or read books or stuff like that. And I think when you do that, you take all of the good aspects and you're like, oh, I do that. Oh, yeah, I do that. Oh, yeah, I do that.
Well,
and we don't apply the real truth of what are we really doing? What are we really not doing?
Well, also we're learning. So round hole, round peg. Okay, so that we study, we learn about marriage, we learn what a wife should be. That is hilarious to even say that. What a man should be, what a woman should be. We should throw that away, everybody, throw that away, because that's making you're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole when you marry someone, because they are not what you learned they were supposed to be.
Right.
And that all the 100%. Things you just said.
And then it's frustrating to me trying to put you, the square peg, into the circle.
Yeah, you're like, and that's why you thought.
So I get frustrated with you and you're like, stop beating me with the hammer.
Right. You're like, I am not going to fit.
It's a no win for either of us.
I'm not going to fit. Right. And that's the thing is, even it's hilarious, even all the things you just named, you were like, well, if you just learn to do the things better. And I was trying to tell you, it's about being, not doing. I was trying to tell you, that's not the issue at all.
Right.
Like, it's not about that. It's about actually me, who I am. And so through that counseling, I think that was fantastic. But obviously, I mean, you and me changed. We made a decision to love each other for who we actually are. Whatever that is. I mean, you're going to wear the same shorts and the same plaid shirt for the rest of your life.
I am.
I mean, probably. I still hold out a tiny bit of hope.
You ask me about every week if there's something else I would like to buy.
And I feel guilty because I say to myself, like, other people have commented on it, and I'm like, but this is who he is. And who am I to say that there's anything wrong with it? Like, even for me to try to change that about you, it's not fair, because this is who you are. This is what you're comfortable doing. It's what you want. You're not hurting anybody. You're not hurting our relationship. Who cares? Throw it out, I talked to my friend, she's in a great marriage, and she said, man, the guy I'm married to, and they've been married a long time, is amazing. He's wonderful, so kind, so loving, so helpful. He does with the kids, with the house. He's like really amazing. And she's like, there's only one thing. There's just one thing. And I'm not even going to complain about it, because who only has one thing wrong with them? And she's like, his truck is like a garbage dump. I mean, it is disgusting in every way. Food, trash, garbage, really old food. Like, it is amazingly disgusting. And she's like, but that's it. That's the only thing that I would, if you said, make your complaints about him, that is the only one, And she's like, so I thank God for that. Thank God that his truck is the thing that's awful, Because,
she has her vehicle, he has his.
Yeah. I mean, so it's like, you have to and that's what me and you began to do. Through that counseling, through the next few years, we began to say to one another or feel about one another, I'm just going to let you be. What do you need to be? And I'm just going to love you like that. What do you need to say? What do you want to do? What do you not want to do? And, it's like, you find another way. It's like your issue a lot was the house. And so partly you just, let up. You're just like, it's just going to be a little messy. We're just not going to have an OCD house. I think you just began to realize things like, it's just not going to be the way it is. And then partly you took action, which is you had somebody come in and help me. You paid someone to help, So it was like, that's a combination, and that was compromise for you, because you no longer were you took all the pressure off of me, which before you were like, well, this is what you should be doing. This is who you should be, you know? It's
well, and
like,
I didn't put the pressure on myself either. I didn't, you know, some wives would say, well, you still don't mow the yard, you still don't clean, or you still don't do this. Like, and I think that's where it's, I never wanted to do it in the first place, and that's why I was trying to get you to do it.
Right.
You know, now I realize you don't want to do it, so then I'm like, all right, well, let's you and me team up and find somebody to help, either the kids or, you know, pay somebody. And I think that's where it fits. Like, just because I didn't want to clean the house, if I put that square peg on you as a round hole and say, hey, you know, make this work, that's not fair to you. But then vice versa, if you say, if you want the house clean, then you do it, you know. Now, but I want the house clean, but I don't want to do it. So, I mean, I think there's lots of aspects that we had to figure out about each other and be honest with, and let that be accepting. Yes, I don't want to clean. You know, and then you say, well, you help me clean. And I say, well, yes, I don't want to help clean either. Right. You know, I put all of the cards on the table. I think that's the thing that helped me love you even more is when we'd be honest. And I remember one time we were fighting and you said, I hate cleaning. I said, oh, thank you. Thank you. Because to me, it was almost a revelation of, you know, not only for me, but like you saying you hate it. And then I'm like, all right, well, she recognizes she hates it. Because like we were fighting about stuff. And I don't know. For me, it was just an aha moment when you're like, I hate cleaning. And I was like, oh.
Yeah, with a tag on that is I also don't need everything to be picked up and tidy and neat all the time. I don't have that inside me. It's just not who I am. But it is who you are because you were raised with a very neat and tidy and very clean. And it's not like your mom loves cleaning. Nobody loves cleaning. Everybody hates it. But some people are fine with a little bit of a mess and some people are not fine with it. And you wanted to marry somebody that was, you know, not fine with a mess because they would have done what it took to clean it, you know?
Yeah, but I think the thing is, we kind of do this, right? There's the right age, the right blend of customs and, you know, things like that. Like, you know, everybody told you not to marry me because I was older, you know, or whatever. I'm sure there was a longer list than just older. Right. So they're like, don't marry this guy. And so then I end up being a terrible husband. And you're like, man, should have listened to them. They were right and all that.
I said that in my mind all the time. I was like, oh, dear God, everyone was right. And I didn't see it, you know?
Right. But I don't know that there's like this perfect scenario because even if you say, well, I'm going to wait till I'm 30 years old. We're both 30 years old. Now we've lived our lives. Now we understand. It doesn't matter because really what you have to, the number one thing for me is in marriage is you have to understand how to work with another person.
Right. And you're absolutely right because you get married and you're 25 or 30. Well, you've become pretty independent. You're probably, you know, have a job, making your own money. You might have, you know, your own car, your own place to live, whatever. Even if you don't have those things, you just keep getting more set in your ways the older you get. You're young, you might be young and dumb and inexperienced, but you also might be more open. I mean, I was very open when we got married. I was like, oh, sure. You want to do it this way, do the house this way, you know, whatever you want to do financially, like, cool. I'm cool. Like, I'm very open. I'm not super opinionated on all this stuff because I was not set in my ways, you know.
Until you started experiencing no money every week, just pay bills or, you know, spend very little. And then the treatment, you know, you kind of felt like, oh, I'm trapped, you know.
Right. But as far as I agree with what you're saying. Marriage is hard no matter what. I was trying to make the argument to you earlier that if you're older, like 25 or up, it is easier in ways. And that's probably true because you just are more like founded in who you are. You understand who you are and what you want. Well, if I understand who I am and what I want, I can pick a spouse. I'm going to pick a spouse based on what I want to do with my life, you know, or who I want to be. So that to me is grounds for probably a more successful marriage. But, you know, that cannot be true for everyone. I mean, some people get married young and are wildly in love and will be willing to do whatever it takes to work it out no matter what season of life they go through. And somebody could get married at 30 and be very stubborn and set in their ways and unwilling to change in any way. And that marriage is going to be very difficult because no matter what, both those scenarios, you have to learn how to mesh and come together with another person. You have to learn how to become a team and work together in every season. Every season.
And both parties have to be willing to do that.
Both parties.
And I think that's where, especially like church, I think submit, coming back to that word, is like, well, if you would just submit to me, then, everything's great. Why? Because I'm getting what I want. But both parties need to submit to love,
right,
rather than
rules, which is big time what you did. I mean, through that counseling and through those next years, you really loved me in a different way, in a new way, in like a mature love, and you really gave me grace in all the situations, and I do think it was that initial, like, you just get scared, that it could be over. And at that time, people, you just got to decide, do I want to fight for this? And are both people wanting to fight for it? And I mean, even then, sometimes both parties are willing to fight, and it still ends in divorce because they just get to the point where they're like, I can't change the way I feel, So that can happen too. But thankfully, me and you are open. I think we are open to change, and that's hard. That's a hard pill to swallow. For you to all of a sudden accept me for all my flaws and everything that, in your opinion, I really would be better if I changed. You're just like, I accept her for that. I mean, that's grace, and for me to do the same to you, that takes work, and that takes really dying to yourself, in a sense of your own personal opinions of what you think you're absolutely right on, that a person should do or a person should be. But you got to let that person be who they are. And they're not going to stay. I'm not going to stay 37-year-old Liz. When I'm 47, you're going to have a different form of me,
Whoop, whoop.
People have accidents.
Based on experiences, you're going to have grandkids. Kids are going to be going to college. Right.
People get hurt. People get sick. You might have to take care of somebody. Your kid. You're going through stuff with your kids. I mean, this process of coming together as a team is just an over and over and over and over process, and it takes not being selfish, and it takes maturity, and it most of all, I think, takes grace and willing. I mean, you could really sum it up, be willing to change.
It's a funny thing, like Grace, because I know I would get mad at you for being on the couch and sleeping, and then I'd want to go take a nap and sleep. And I was sitting there and I was like, why is it all right for me to yell at her, be mad at her for wanting to sleep, but then here really in my heart of heart, I want to sleep also. And it's kind of like the things I wanted, I was yelling at you about, and once I realized
you were jealous.
Right. It's okay for her to sleep. It's okay for me to sleep. Like, we don't have to have these responsibilities. We don't have to put this pressure on ourselves or each other, and that's, for me, grace was not only for you or the other person, like, I've got to give grace, I got to give grace, I got to give. It was also for me, the individual, and I think that's what we need to probably push the most is have grace for yourself, as a woman who's in a marriage, have grace for yourself. As a man who's in a marriage, you have grace for the mistakes you've made, have grace for, the things that were said. But the great thing about it is once I get grace for how mean I was to you, well, now I can also change that. I can say, man, I sure was a jerk. I was terrible. I pushed you to the edge of divorce. But I have grace that I am sorrowful about that, but now I also have grace that I can change that. I can change our situation. I can change our circumstances. It doesn't have to be the same way over and over. It doesn't have to be the end. I have grace for myself, for you, and for the future to be able to keep on going forward. Honestly, that's probably the backbone of where we're at today is because of the grace that we give each other and ourselves.
Right. When you think about someone through the eyes of love, you see them different. When I see the love inside of you, that's who you really are. You could say the Jesus inside of you, the Jesus that lives inside of you. That's the truth of who you are. That's the real Ben. The real Ben is completely loving and kind and creative and fun. And I know who you are in all of the times. So when I look at you, I see you. I'm gonna start crying. I don't know why. I see that love. I see that person, and I'm totally fine with submitting to that because I'm submitting to love. I'm submitting to the Jesus Ben, And even when you're in your flesh and you're not that, that's okay. I still see you the same, and you're not required to act any way for me. You're not required to perform to fit my needs on a daily basis. It's okay. You're tired. You need to rest. You don't want to go somewhere. It's okay. We can find a different way. We can do it a different way. I don't have to have my way. You can be you and I can be me, and we can just come together. We can work together, work it out.
And you probably would hear things like that at a conference or stuff like that, or desire that to be the beginning of our marriage, but it wasn't. But now that we know, it's no going back, and it's our marriage is so much easier now.
We were both stubborn and prideful, and those are like blockers. At the beginning, it's like, if you're prideful, you're not willing to change. That's what that means. Pride means I'm right and I'm unwilling to change my mind. And that's like a roadblock. You're not going to get anywhere when you can't make the decision. You know what? It's possible that what they're saying has some truth to it, and you gotta lay that pride down, and that selfishness, like, I'm just going to do what I want all the time, and that's where I was getting in the marriage when I was wanting it to be. I was getting selfish. I was like, I'm just going to do what I want. That's the way I was going to start living. And that's going to be a blocker, that's going to be a roadblock right there. So, it's a continually giving up for the other person, but that does not mean I give up who I am. It does not mean I stop being myself. I want to be my true self. I want to be a vibrant, full of life person, ready and able and willing to love other people in the right way, because when you're a well-loved person, you can love other people, in the way that they need to be loved. So I can still be myself and at the same time give up things for you, be selfless, So you can do both things.
So now you got married. You're very thoughtful in the process of got married. You had a lot of affirmations from other people that you shouldn't have married me. Got married.
I just have a question. Did anyone tell you to not marry me? I just want to know, because it's possible. I think maybe your dad said something.
Maybe I won't tell you, though. All right. Keep you guessing.
I want to know.
Then we're at the threshold of divorce, counseling, afterlife, that whole course of it, though, what do you still think of marriage? You've basically been through all the parts. Would you encourage people to get married? Would you encourage them to go through this? Would you encourage them? Final words on Because I think what you said before was really important, where you were talking about the most important person in the marriage is not the marriage. It's the people who make the marriage up. You know, if I'm fighting for the marriage becomes more important and I take a back step, you know, or back burner. And I don't think that to be true. Like, to me, two highly performing people make a marriage, not a marriage make two people, you know. Make that sound right for me. Because the institution of, or the title of a marriage, you were dying in that, you know. I mean, it didn't work for you.
Right.
You know, like now it's, you know, it's not Ben and Liz, it's Liz and Ben. You know, it's not the marriage of Ben and Liz that makes Liz. It's Liz the individual, Ben the individual that make the marriage.
So for some people, I think marriage is the ultimate commitment, right? Which that makes sense. For some people, it's that commitment feels like being locked in, being locked up, which I think is what you're saying. Like that, the institution of marriage, oh crap, this is a big deal. I'm trapped. It is a big deal, but you're exactly right. Relationship should be the forefront of your mind if you're getting married. People should be getting married because if in their mind they're saying, man, I want to be committed to you. I'm ready for this commitment. I'm excited for this commitment. Not necessarily I want to lock this in. You know, if you're using words like locked, trapped, these are some red flags, you know. It does make sense to me, in a way, people that don't get married at all, because they're like, I don't need that. And I've changed my mind on that a little bit, because before I would have been like, well, that's cowardly. Like, if you're just going to be in a relationship because you're saying you don't need the piece of paper, no, you're just saying you don't want to actually commit and you want one foot out the door all the time. That's what you're really saying. That's what I hear, you know. But that doesn't necessarily have to be true, because what you're saying is, what if there's two people that are like, listen, I love you. I'm committed to this relationship, and all I care about is this relationship with you for the rest of my life. I don't need a huge party or the government to recognize this, you know, formally, because I'm committed to this relationship. Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn, I think, right? Didn't ever get married. And have been together for like ever.
30 years. Yeah.
Like, you know, my whole life or whatever. So I definitely think that mindset it would be better if people went into marriage like that. Like, what I'm actually committing to is you, my relationship with you. Marriage, that's the institution of marriage, because then you got divorce, then you got the whole shebang, which I understand it's weird to separate that out. But if you cared more about the relationship, and if that was your focus, well, that would be what you worked on, you know? Friendship, if you guys don't know, when you get to an adult, friendships are work. Because guess what? You go to work, you take care of your kids, you come home, you're tired. You know, you take care of your kids all day, you're tired. So friendships take work when you get to be an adult. So how much, obviously, a marriage takes work. You can't just be two people living in the house together, going about your life. It's like you got to focus on that person. What are they going through? What season are they going through now? What are they into? What are they thinking about? What's going on in their heart? Like they're a mystery that you're trying to learn. Like, you want to know more about them, you know? I mean, it's true, right? We're learning more about each other as we go. And that's a process that people need to go into marriage. It's not like you're committing to a lifelong marriage. You switch your mind. I'm committing to a life with this person through all of it, through all the seasons, through every change that they go through person. Because it's like, if you could see God sees the whole picture. If you could see that person as the whole picture, then you'd know when you went through really difficult times of depression or whatever, they're going to make it through that. They're not going to stay that way, you know? If we could look at a person as the complete person instead of like this moment person, like who you are in this moment, this week, this month, you know? You gotta view people like in completion, you know?
Well, I think that's kind of, you know, I think it's so hard for me to say some of these things because I have to be so vulnerable and honest and say, ooh, ouch, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I probably hid behind the institution of marriage, entrapping you as my wife, not thinking that you would ever get a divorce to me, and did not fully commit to you as an individual. And till I changed that, dropped the institution of marriage as a prison sentence to you of something that you had to do or work for. And if you did good, then I would do good to you, you know, but if you did bad, I would obviously give you bad. For me, I think in my heart of heart and being able to openly, honestly say it now because we're so past that, I committed to the institution of marriage more than the individual of Liz.
Right. And you know, my dad...
And I'm sorry.
Oh.
But here we are now. But you know, and I think be aware of the people or yourself. Like if you're listening to this, you're like, oh, maybe I think that way. Or maybe I thought my wife would never get a divorce from me, or, you know, or my husband treats me this way where I'm imprisoned, or, you know, are they married to the institution, the title of marriage, or are they married to the individual?
Right. And so go back when I was saying I was so scared of marriage and I didn't want to get married, but I did love you and I loved being in relationship with you. I mean, you were definitely my best friend, the one I always wanted to talk to. And I was very immature. So I was struggling internally of what to do, when to do it. And my dad is wise, and he said, you know, if you really can't live your life without him, just get married, you know? And I was like, but is it really that simple? Well, yeah, because just go ahead and start the rest of your life. I mean, if you really want him so much, and as far as best you can, you're thinking about forever in a relationship with this person, and it like nearly kills you to think about them not being in that picture of your life, then, which it did, because I broke up with you and I was like a shell of a human being for like weeks. You know, that's how I interpret that, is like the same thing you're saying. He was saying he's a person, you're in a relationship with him, and if that's what you want, then just go ahead and get it started, you know? And it, you know, is if you know yourself well enough to know this is what I'm going to want. And if he wasn't here, I would be like, nobody else would really compare, and they wouldn't be good enough.
Well, and you did that. You went on some dates with some other people, and you're like,
yeah,
I want my Benn.
I'm like, give me that asshole that is loud and obnoxious and
has great hair.
I want that guy.
Well, I appreciate you talking vulnerably about our marriage and divorce and putting it all on the table, and hopefully it will help people kind of evaluate where they're at, you know.
Yeah, there's no perfect way. There's no way we can know. We can't predict everything or anything. But we can do our best to grow in who we are, know what we want, know what we're looking for. And if you're already in the marriage, you know, you can work every day at seeing that person, seeing that Christ inside. Everybody has it. Doesn't matter if they call themselves a Christian or not. Everybody has that. You could call it love, that loving inside them. And you see him for that. You see your spouse as that, as who they really are, the truth of their being, the real truth of who they are. When you see somebody like that, man, everything changes, you know. And that'll give you a good head start, and it makes you want to be selfless. It makes you want to work and love that person and work at loving that person.
Until next time.